you had your chiropractor and then you went to the OB and then you went to somebody else, you said?
Right. So the chiropractor is the one that sent me for the x-ray. In the
Hmm.
meantime, because we thought it was a disc thing, and then honestly, it was a disc thing. I mean, I did have a herniated disc, which was causing the pain. It just happened to be that showed up the cancer. So at once they discovered the cancer, it's like all bets were off with fixing your back. We have to address this first. So it was all kind of fluid, not really chronological. It was all kind of fluid. So I had an x-ray appointment, and then I needed my doctor to give me an MRI slip. The chiropractor couldn't do that.
Right.
So while the x-ray stuff was going on, he's like, you're going to need an MRI, so make an appointment with your primary, which was already in play when the x-rays came back, and it was like whoop whoop whoop. So the my primary physician, he is not a warm man, but I just gave him a huge hug when it was all over. I'm like, I don't even care, just I'm gonna lay one on you, because I would not be here right now if it was not for your diligence. So even though he's very stoic, I'm like, too bad.
Too bad. Yeah.
Too bad.
So you go to him and you get the MRI and he issues the blood work. What happens next? Like what's the next step?
So the next step is the blood work comes back. And as I said, it's a specific blood work that tests for protein in your blood. And it's called a CA-125. And when you have perhaps ovarian cancer, those numbers are elevated. So depending on the blood test, it should be generally under a 35. And mine came back in the hundreds. My gynecologist, who should have known all of this, kept saying, well, it's not in the thousands, so it can't be that bad. And my primary was like, we're not waiting for it to get to the thousands to do a biopsy, because then it's too late. And he basically had an argument over the phone with the gynecologist, forcing the biopsy. So when the blood work came back high, my primary forced a biopsy through the GYN. So I
Okay.
went to made an appointment, and she's like, we're just going to do a quick biopsy. The last thing she said to me as they were rolling me into the operating room was, you'll be home by lunch. I'll never forget it. It was 9:30 in the morning, and she said, we're going to do a quick biopsy. This is nothing. You'll be home by lunch. Just prior to that, I had asked, is my CA-125 higher than it was before? And she goes, yeah, it is. And I had the panic looked on my face. And that's when she said, don't worry, honey, you'll be home by lunch. So I go roll in, anesthesia takes effect. I wake up and it's 3:30 in the afternoon. And even under anesthesia, I'm like, oh, that doesn't seem quite right.
It's definitely not lunchtime.
I don't know where we are, but in this time zone, that ain't lunch. So my fiance, who's now my husband, was there. And all I said was, can you please go get my fiance from the waiting room? I don't know what to do, because obviously I knew that it was going to be awful. And it was then, while we were waiting for Jeff to come up, was when she told me that they had to do a total hysterectomy. They took
Oh,
everything I had, lymph nodes. They just had to keep carving and carving and carving until the lab had no cells to identify.
so
Um,
they went in before, so they went in there going in for a biopsy and it turned into this whole long surgery.
right. And back to the physician advocacy thing, I had shopped around in, like, while all this was getting planned, I shopped around for an oncologist that would be in the hospital just in case. And we settled on a man. And Jeff was very confident in him because he had great hair, which you can say is not a good criteria, and I'll tell you why. Because when they went in for just the biopsy and ended up doing the complete hysterectomy, he was nowhere to be found. He never, and we made the appointment for that day because he said he would be in the hospital that day. So a stranger that I never met ended up doing the hysterectomy and the cancer debulking, they call it. And this is all, I'm unconscious, I don't know this is going on. And my gynecologist, who couldn't have made more mistakes, at the end of the surgery, when you have a regular hysterectomy just for female issues, they wash your abdomen with this solution to kind of seal everything, your peritoneal cavity. And you're not supposed to do that in a hysterectomy that has to do with cancer, because then it sends those cancer cells through your whole body because you're all bleeding and everything. And she did it even though she wasn't supposed to. And also, while they were doing the debulking, they slit my bladder, so I had to have an emergency
Casually.
bladder surgeon come in and sew me up there. And so now I have a lacerated bladder and the cancer cells being spread that shouldn't have been. And I'm just like laying there hearing all this and going,
It's not lunchtime.
first of all, it's not lunchtime. And second of all, this could not have gone more wrong. And I'm a positive person by nature. So I thought, well, they pretty much got all the mistakes out of the way. So going forward, we should be all right. I
It's
think
only uphill from here.
we front loaded that. So it should be fine. And I changed gynecologists immediately. As soon as she took the staples and everything out, I never went back. I just never called her, never followed up on an appointment, never. She would send letters saying they've been trying to reach me, and I found a different person who worked on me through our local cancer institute